How avoidance partners feel when you stay silent. This is what we will cover today in this video. If you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Alexis. I'm a relationship therapist and also a former avoidant. And as a former avoidant, I like to share my inner world, explaining a little bit how we function. And if you're dating an avoidant, you might be telling yourself sometimes, what's going on? It doesn't make sense that this person reacts this way. And so silence could be a weapon, not in the sense of damaging your partner, but a weapon to really help actually create the right dynamic, the right relationship, feeling secure with that person. Let me explain. So first of all, avoidant attachment. We value independence, right? We value being also emotionally detached from things, from people. When something difficult happens, okay, we detach ourselves. We don't get too much involved because then that's a coping mechanism. We can't suffer, we can't be disappointed. And so when you provide that silence, it's kind of creating that space that we love in a way, unconsciously, that we really value, right? That we cherish. This element of, okay, if I have space, if I have time, if I have this silence, I can be on my own. I can reflect. And I don't feel the pressure from the external world. Understand that avoidant people, they grew up with this idea of it's important to be self-reliant, right? And if there's a problem, if there's something going on, deal it yourself. Because when we are younger, that's how we were taught. Be autonomous, be independent, because I don't have time for you. So you have to, do things yourself. And this idea of relationships in that sense, as avoidant, is like, I can't really rely on anyone. And I don't like, and that's creating this idea of, I don't like to depend on anyone. And I don't like people to depend on me as well. And so this silence would trigger this, the right environment for them to reflect and potentially to be curious. Because after a breakup, if you broke up with your avoidant partner, if they had feelings for you, because avoidance can have feelings, can love, it has nothing to do with their attachment. You can have feelings, it's just that you're blocking things out. But this time apart, this silence, the silence treatment that you're giving them, is forcing them as well to reflect. Away from the pressure, away from the difficult conversations. Right? And I have no other choice but to really reflect on things. The thing is, when you break up with when an avoidant breaks up with you, or when you break up with an avoidant, during the contact, there's always this phase of relief, because we are getting back to this ideal stage, this ideal thing, unconsciously that they prefer, which is like, okay, I'm on my own. Sometimes we feel relationship is too much pressure. I love you, but the relationship is too much. So if you take away the relationship, I feel better. I don't have this pressure anymore. So there's always this element of pressure. And it's interesting because people who have an anxious attachment style, they don't see relationship as pressure. They see in a way the other way around. My life is a void and I need to fill it with relationship. So it's like negative pressure in a way. Whereas like for avoidant people, it's positive pressure. Positive in the sense of like plus versus minus. And so that creates also this idea, and the way they will cope with things is, okay, I have no other things to do but to be independent. So typical case, so I put hobbies, work, and distractions, but typical case for my clients is like their ex will go back to work like big time. They will focus on work. They usually have businesses, are very successful. And so they will really, really get mad with work, like workaholic. In a way, we can learn from that on how to deal with the breakup. Spending your time working 70 hours per week is not necessarily the right way to heal from a breakup. It's not really the right way to learn from a breakup. But this idea of shifting your attention on something you can control, distracting yourself. The thing is, why avoidant love being workaholic is that they can control that. It's an environment where you don't have to be emotional. You can be really transactional. You can put a distance with people. You don't have to talk about your fears, your insecurities with your boss or with your peers or with your employees. You just do the work. And it's really measurable, right? There's a lot of KPIs and things that are quite analytical, so they feel in control. And so one thing that we can learn, if you feel like, I'm overwhelmed with this breakup, I'm so anxious, it's finding activities, so find the right balance, but finding activities where you have a sense of control. So overdoing it, you're going to miss the opportunity to heal and learn. But if you don't do it, this is where you're going to trigger these anxious thoughts, those ruminations that we sometimes experience after a breakup. And so obviously, for avoidant, it's emotional detachment. No contact, emotional detachment. I can finally be away from the pressure of the relationship. And dismissive avoidant, people refer avoidant as dismissive avoidant because they dismiss emotions. For a very long time, before I went to therapy, emotions was kind of a bad word for me. Because if you're emotional, you're vulnerable. If you're vulnerable, you're weak. And I don't want to be weak. I want to be strong, right? And so they're going to suppress those things. I don't want to be anxious. I don't want to be sad. Being sad is for losers, okay? This kind of thought process. And that's why sometimes avoidant, they don't learn from those experiences. The problem is that being sad or depressed is a signal, it's a sign that we need to explore things, that we need to unpack those emotions and learn from them. If you dismiss them, at some stage, they'll catch up with you. And you fail to recognize the big picture. That's the problem with avoidant. They're going to skip from one thing to another, suppressing things. So those three things: relief, independence, and emotional detachment. But that's not going to be like this forever. If they had feelings for you, the thing is, what will happen is that they're going to start being curious. In a way, they might anticipate that he or she was so keen. He was so, she was, or he was smothering me. I'm sure they will reach out. I'm sure they need me in their life, They felt so dependent on me. And so they'll be quite curious, wondering what's going on. The emotional suppression that I discussed before might resurface. So the thing is, and that's very important for you to understand, take notes. After a breakup, the timeline between someone avoidant and someone secure or anxious is completely different. Especially if it's actually there's a big difference, even bigger difference when the avoidant breaks up with an anxious person. The emotional turmoil for an anxious person is right away super intense. And the whole point is managing those emotions for the next few weeks. For avoidant people, they don't feel anything right after the breakup. And slowly and gradually, they sense a bit of regret. They reflect on things. And usually, those curves will cross at some stage. If we wait too long, when the avoidant will feel those regrets and will reach out and will finally open themselves, sometimes it's too late for the anxious. They feel like, I've done the work. I don't need someone like you anymore. It's too late. And it happens a lot. So the point is, if you want to get back together, it's finding when it crosses. There's no magic formula. I wish there was a formula, a mathematical formula. But the point is like figuring out when you should get in touch, when you should start recreating the relationship. Another thing is the fear of permanence. So the thing is, and it's very counterintuitive, they broke up with you. They feel from the outside world okay with the breakup. So when you go on social media and they seem happy, they go to work, etc. They really seem not as effective as you are. But deep inside, because they're really good at masking, they might be scared, thinking that you might move on. So it's very important for you you don't see that, but there's a lot of things going on in their mind. So the reason silence is powerful is because, as we discussed, avoidant process emotions on a different timeline than yours. And giving you that silence is forcing them and in a way helping them to process those emotions early on. if you are still in touch with them, you're prolonging this opportunity. And anytime you break the contact, anytime you interact too early, this is sort of resetting things on in that sense. So the silence removes the pressure. And the whole point of going no contact is to create that space. The whole point of no contact is to be able to reset, create space for you to heal, for you to learn, to reflect, but also for them to learn, to reflect, to appreciate what they lost. Because that's the thing. When people break up, they make a lot of assumptions. They assume that I'll be happier alone. It's going to be fine. I don't need anyone. When you love someone, if that person told you, I love you, but it's not working out, the it's not working out will have a different connotation 1 month of them being alone if they have feelings for you and they tell you those things. The it's not working out will have a different aspect. They will really assess things differently after a month or two when you're not part of their life. Okay? Because in a way they don't want to accept it, but in a way they lost something important in their life. They lost you, who was very important in their life. They didn't want to acknowledge this, but it was the case. So avoidants are very good at masking, as I said. And so there are a few things that you can still kind of assess in terms of the signs, instead of the behavior, if they're still interested. So first of all, they're going to check on your social media. You're going to see the activity changing a little bit. They're going to ask mutual friends about how you're doing, etc., etc. You might receive messages or missed calls like, okay, oh, my pocket called you, these kind of things. The point is, yes, you're happy to see those signs. It's great, it's positive. But never forget that you need to focus on yourself right now. It's really important, self-improvement, because it's the only thing you can control. Someone liking a post on Instagram, that's not a sign that it's the right partner for you. That's not a sign of commitment. You need more than that. Okay? That's just showing that there's an interest. That's it. Okay? That's step 0.1 before the first step, the first real step. Okay? So the thing is, understand those things, because you don't want to mix those low intensity signals to real interest. Sometimes they're just curious. They just have this sense of loss and they want to feel reassured. Okay, fair enough. But don't play the game and getting in that loop where you make 1 step forward, 2 steps backward, etc., etc. You don't want this. You deserve more than this. So it's important to, again, assess over time the interaction, the intention of your ex. Now, what you have to remember is that silence is the best way to force your avoidant partner to reflect. It creates the right environment, the right condition for them to reflect without pressure. Of course, they will come across distant. They will come across as they don't care. See it as an iceberg. The upper side of the iceberg is, okay, I'm cool, I'm fine, I'm having friends, I'm going out, I have my work, etc. But below the surface, there's another story. Now, what you have to remember is that you're watching this video. So you want to do the work. You want to improve. You want to learn the things you need to put in place to have a successful relationship. When you get back with him or her, you have to assess that they are doing the work too. Because you don't want to end up in a one-sided relationship. So people who work with me, they have no difficulty getting back with their ex. But the thing is, sometimes, because they have more clear boundaries, they know what they want, they have reflected well enough on the relationship, they don't accept everything. And sometimes they realize, that's not the right person, that's not the right relationship for me. If you're not sure about what I've just said, have a look, there's a free assessment in the description to assess whether dating this avoidant is the right decision. Because maybe he or she is just a very strict, rigid, avoidant person, and being in a committed relationship is not something they want, and it's not something they will ever want, regardless of who they date. And it's important for you to assess this early on, because that will really influence the next steps, influence also your journey as you heal from this breakup. If you have any question on this, let me know in the comment section, and I'll see you next time. Take care.